I'm with Stan Edmondson at his house in Borrowdale. Troutdale? Is that right, Stan?
Troutdale.
Troutdale. How long have you lived in the house?
Well, this house here, we bought the house in 1982, but I was bred and born at the head of the valley, at Seatoller. My mother was born at Stonethwaite and my father was born at Seathwaite.
So you were saying to me yesterday when we met briefly that you are the only true surviving cuckoo.
Yeah, it's a fact actually, because I'll have a brother and a sister which you can count, but I was kind of the last home birth Borrowdalian in 1950, and that is father and mother also born in the valley. But our family initially, Edmondson family, sheep farming family. My great-grandfather first started out at Douthwaite Head over above Ullswater, and then eventually they moved to Endlath, and where he raised 3, and then they moved from there to Birkrigg, up in Newland Valley. And then from there they went to Seathwaite, so we haven't moved far in the last 120 years.
No, you haven't. What do you think's kept the family here?
Well, the farming really, the sheep farming. A hard life really.
And has that become harder, or...?
Not as hard as it was in my grandfather and great-grandfather's day, I'm sure. They were self-sufficient in them days. They had a couple of pigs and they had a cow and a few sheep to butch every year, and the home-cured bacon. They made their own butter. And that was it in them days. They maybe went to Keswick once a month or something.
So where did they sell their produce? Was it to other people, locals?
Well, there was the marts on then, the Cockermouth.
Marts, you mean?
Yeah, the sheep auction.
Market.
Yeah, the market.
Okay,
yeah.
Right.
They just made a livelihood just to survive, basically.
So
when they tell me in the old days, at the very beginning at Seathwaite, that the kids up there, they were running around with no shoes on at all, because that was it in them days, barefoot, a lot of the time. Well, it's an old folklore tale or whatever, that the cuckoo, when the cuckoo arrived in Borrowdale, it was all the springtime, and they had this mad idea about that if they put a wall across the Castle Crag somewhere there and keep the cuckoo in Borrowdale, that we'd have eternal springs, an eternal spring if you want. But anyhow, when it come to the departing time, the cuckoo just flew over the wall, and that was the end of it. But I wouldn't go as far as believing much of that thing. When the winds used to set in from the east, generally round about beginning of March, it was called the Helm wind. It would blow off the Pennines and into Keswick and right up the valley, and then up the Borrowdale Valley. And it used to be a very cold wind. Nothing grew. The sheep, in many cases, were very, very hungry. They had to import mangels and turnips and that to feed the sheep. And these winds would blow for 5 weeks. And it was, they didn't like it at all. It was good for nothing, they said. Anything that comes out of the east was good for now.
How do you say used to, as if we don't get them anymore here?
No, we haven't. There has been a couple of times this last 3 years when they've blown briefly, but no, you used to be able to kind of set your calendar to them. They were so frequent in nature, but no, that's gone. But maybe now with the cold winters coming back, this last 2, coldest since 1947, which I wasn't born then, but it could well be a new type of cycle. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. You got up in the morning and you looked at the different days and the different weather and the seasons changing, and man, to this very day, I take in the scenery, whether I go up the valley or down the valley, and I look at what we've got here, and people say, "Oh, you just take it for granted." Well, I don't. I appreciate what we've got here, and really enjoy it, you know. On the slate mines I work. I then did a spell in the army. Came out of the army in about 1972. Set the trout farm up at Seathwaite, which was another unique facility in the Lake District. Really, I think I was the second one.
What got you interested in doing that?
Trout? Well, I would always come back from school, and there was plenty of water in the rivers when the floods were on, and my uncle taught me how to fish, and it was like I couldn't wait to get back from school to go fishing. So I was always into trout and latterly salmon, and I've always enjoyed being on the river.
They had salmon in the rivers then, they don't now?
Yeah, we've still got a run of salmon up Borrowdale towards October time. It's like everything else has changed, hasn't it? Salmon runs have gone down now, and they're on the danger list, aren't they, the Atlantic salmon? Well, I had a hatchery there, built a hatchery. I read up on it before I started off, and I had a very good book from America, which was called the Californian Fish and Game Bulletin 142, I think it was, and there was everything in that book you could ever want to set up fish farming and understand it. And so that's what that was my Bible, if you want. And we reared fish, small at the start, and then got bigger, supplying the hotels in the valley, Keswick, for about 18-mile radius, really.
Word of mouth?
Word of mouth, and the quality of the trout from Seathwaite was next to none, you know, with the pure water there. The flesh was lovely. And people loved it. It was Borrowdale trout on the menu, and, you know, that was great, you know.
My fancy of it is that it was rather an idyllic life, was it?
Yeah. Fish farming, whale life, specialist whale life. Wife ran the cafe, I did the fish farming, we worked together, raised the kids, worked hard, and that was it. But we got a lot of satisfaction out of it all. Yeah.
And you've stopped doing that?
Well, I passed it over to my son about 14 years ago, I would reckon now, and he worked hard at the job, and things wasn't getting easier. He was getting harder and harder all the time, until he thought that he could make more money out of the stone walling around the valley and the surrounding area. So, sadly, for both myself and my wife, he mothballed the fish farm, and they closed the cafe down as well. But we were very upset with that, because there's always been teas to be had at Seathwaite for over 100 years, and now you can't get a cup of tea when you come walking down off Scarfell and Gable and the hills.
Sad. And you say mothball, so it's still there. It could be
Still there,
life.
and it could strike up tomorrow. I hope one day it will. Who knows? I was always fascinated with bees. The bees was a chap called John Cobbain, was a family from Seatoller that had the garage there, and he had 2 or 3 hives of bees. And how it all started was when we come off the school bus, he would shout us, me and my friend, and come and give us a hand to smoke these bees, lads, will you? So we used to go down, and he would chuck it an old veil, and he says, right, you just smoke now. When I tell you, you just puff that smoker. And we did that, and that's really how I got hooked. It's been in the back of my mind all my life. So I have another friend whose uncle and father was beekeepers in Keswick, and so I said to Ralph, I was going to take beekeeping up. That'll be interesting, he said. So I got myself 7 good bee books and studied it for 12 months, and then chucked myself in at the deep end and acquired 3 hives and started from there. At the moment, the bee keeping is difficult, if not downright complicated. It isn't a business, it's just a hobby, and a very expensive hobby. If you take it over 10 years, you'd be out of pocket. You get 2 good years, you get a lot of honey, you sell a bit of your honey, it comes back into the pot, and then you get 3 lean years, which we had just this last year was a better year, but the 3 year prior to that we had no honey take at all. So the bees just survive with the bad weather. It's not ideal in this area. What I'm saying is the weather's not ideal. The crops are good. If the weather was like it is today, sunny for a week up on end, you get a good take of honey. The tourist trade, well, that's got to be good for the local economy.
When did that really take off in the valley?
Usually, well, it's all year round now, weekends.
Yeah, in terms of...
They're all winter. If it's a good weekend, they're out. But Easter time till about the end of October.
I was thinking in terms of when it really started, the railways came through to Keswick, didn't they, in the 1860s? I guess that was the beginning of the tourist trade.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a hotel like the Coaching Inns, Scarfell Hotel, Borrowdale Hotel, Ladore Hotel. There were coaching inns, even going back to horse and carts. They went across the Honister Pass, and they were picked up at the station by a horse and cart. So the tourists have been here a long time. I worked at Honister Quarry. I'm a qualified rock hand, which entails drilling and blasting for the slate.
What was that like?
That was hard work, but it paid better than farming.
Did you stay off at the mine or did you travel around daily?
I used to go up every morning. The wagon went up there, took us up and brought us back into the... used to lodge with my grandmother at Troutdale, where I was born. I worked up there quite a bit, on and off. My grandfather was killed up there. He was a rock hand. He was killed back in 1930s, mid-30s. William Jackson.
How did he die?
Well, he was dressing in on a face in the quarry, and a bit of loose rock had come out and smashed the ladders up, and he went down and he was killed.
Instantly. There were many disasters, right?
Oh, we've been very lucky, honestly. There was another chap local, Pont Pepper, who was another bit of a legend up here. He used to live at Bowderstone, and they just had the one son, Jim. He was a quarryman. Pont got killed. Well, he didn't get killed initially. He got badly injured, bad back injuries, and he was in a wheelchair then till he died. Pont was one of the old school, He used to like hunting with the Blencathra, and he had Lakeland Terriers, and he had an old motorbike and a sidecar, and he used to have the terriers sitting on the sidecar. And he used to wear these big furry gloves, and he used to hunt the otters up here when there were plenty of otters about. They're back again now, is the otters in big numbers.
It's good news.
He used to hunt the otters in the hard winters, He used to track them up. The one he did, the longest one he ever did was from Bowderstone. He tracked the otter in deep snow right to Seathwaite and tracked it up into the waterfall at Sowmilk Gill, and him and his terriers got that otter out of there. Not so long time ago. I wasn't born then, it's just what my dad told me.
One of the stories that goes from generation to generation.
Right, yeah. I've been quite annoyed with Stephen over the years when he's been able to afford to buy him a place. And I said, we'll help you out, get on with it. And one example was up at Seatoller, my grandma's house there. I should have bought that, but I bought this instead. 25,000, it was sold for 230,000 the last time it was on the market. And the other one that Stephen should have bought, it's probably worth 350,000 now, and they only wanted like 45,000 for it then. I worked on tunnels, earning good money.
Tunnels?
Yeah, I worked on the main Heltondale to Ullswater tunnel. It was a 9-foot diameter, it was just short of a mile.
What's that for? Water?
Yeah, Manchester Corporation.
So Salmere to Manchester. No, Ullswater.
Ullswater. Yeah, there's a big pumping station down above Pooley Bridge. Pumps the water up about, I don't know, quarter of a mile up to the tunnel, and then there's a gradient tunnel that goes down to Heltondale, and then it goes on from there into Sledle. Different, it's all pushed around like. But that was a good job. That was brilliant money. And again, I was into my quarrying, and so that was I grafted, and that was it.
And the hours, what were they like?
12-hour shift.
Right. That's something that...
Well rewarded at the end of it all.
Yeah.
With good paycheck.
Uh-huh.
And I got a lot of my skills. I worked on building work on motorways a bit. So I can put my hand to anything. Building a house, I've done that.
You built
this.
Did you? You must be very proud of that.
Done all the patio. Everything here, it's all done with myself. The fish farm we built. It all come into levels and eyeing a job up and weighing up the potential, and it's a natural skill that our families had in our blood, really. Yeah. My Uncle Joe was up at Seathwaite. He started up with ducks, and he had a massive big poultry farm at the end, turkeys and ducks, thousands of them, where the fish farm is now. And he used the fresh water for the pens for the ducks, and it was a thriving business.
What did he do with them?
Pardon?
What did he do with the ducks?
Sold them to hotels, similar job. And then when he moved to Stonycroft, back to Newlands, where some of our roots were, he was always into pigs, even at Seathwaite, and he set up a big 100 sow unit at Stonycroft, went into the pig business.